Cowboys are wrapping up at the Star in Frisco. We are going to go through all of it, talk about our standouts here. I've got Bill Jones. I'm Lindsay Draper. We have defensive back Jourdan Lewis joining us later. We have special teams coordinator Keith OQuinn. It's going to be a good show.
Yes, we've got plenty to talk about. Of course, it is hot here in Texas, but it won't be long. We'll be in Oxnard, California. Really just 3 more days out here at the Star with the minicamp coming up this week, and then it's the cool climes of Southern California.
Cannot wait for that. And Cowboys have been spending all summer practicing, but so have other teams, Bill. Let's refresh a little bit on what the NFC East did this offseason, how they look a little bit different, starting with the Giants, who we always have on that home opener.
Well, and the Giants, you know, when you look at this team and the big problem the Giants had really last year and the year before, the run game, and they think that they took care of it with Saquon Barkley, their top draft pick out of Penn State, the running back. And they also added Nate Solder, formerly of the New England Patriots. Spent a lot of money, 4 years, $62 million, $35 million guaranteed on Solder. And their second-round draft pick, an offensive guard from Will Hernandez from UTEP. And so that's what they focused on, was shoring up their run game.
Yep, and Saquon Barkley is going to be a sight to see. What about the Eagles, though? It seems that they are going to look pretty much the same and have Carson Wentz back.
You know, they had a little bit of attrition on their defensive line, and they've added Michael Bennett, Haloti Ngata, who only played 5 games for the Lions last year, big guy inside, and they are hoping they can get more than 5 games out of him than what Detroit did last year. They also added Mike Wallace, wide receiver. They lost Torrey Smith, and of course Mike Wallace, former Raven, can stretch the field, and a weapon for Carson Wentz, who, by the way, this week the Eagles are saying Carson Wentz will be ready for Week 1 coming off that ACL injury.
You think the Eagles are a Super Bowl contender again?
I would say so.
Absolutely so. Carson Wentz, it's a big injury, but he could be back and looking just like he did before. But what about the Redskins? They look a little different, but what are we going to get from them? That's a big question.
It'll be interesting. And, of course, the big news with the Redskins this offseason, Kirk Cousins leaves in free agency as he is now with the Minnesota Vikings. And they took care of their quarterback situation by acquiring Alex Smith, the former Kansas City Chief, who's in his last year of his contract. They're trying to shore up their receivers. Paul Richardson comes over to the Redskins, and they added another defensive lineman from Alabama in the first round of the draft. Oh, by the way, they also added a former Dallas Cowboy in their secondary, and of course that would be one Orlando Scandrick.
That should be interesting. And of course, if they're looking at the Cowboys, where would they even start with how different this roster looks?
Yeah, I mean, well, we'll take the next half hour to tell you about what the Cowboys have done. That's pretty much the way it's been for Dallas, starting with Witten and Dez at the wide receiver position that everybody's focused on.
All right, next up, Mickey Spagnola will join us here on the Blitz with new special teams coordinator Keith OQuinn. What does he think of his new role? We'll find out next.
The Dallas Cowboys Blitz is brought to you by AT&T, mobilizing your world. The law offices of Domingo Garcia, the lawyer that works for justice. And by the Dallas Cowboys Football Club. For the ultimate Dallas Cowboys experience, tour the Star in Frisco, where the Cowboys train and work. For more information, visit thestarinfrisco.com/tours. This segment is brought to you by AT&T, mobilizing your world.
Welcome back to the Blitz here at OTA. Special teams coordinator Keith OQuinn right there working with the specialists. And Bill, I'd say he's one who's worked through the ranks here with the Cowboys.
He definitely has. The Cowboys love to promote from within, and he has earned his stripes, and he's earned his new position with the Cowboys. Of course, Rich Bisaccia left in the offseason. Now the special teams coordinator with the Oakland Raiders, and the assistant special teams coordinator was Keith OQuinn, but now he's got his promotion. He's standing by in Ford Center now with Mickey Spagnola.
Thanks, Bill, and I am with Cowboys special teams coach Keith OQuinn. How does that sound, special teams coach? You don't have a subtitle, assistant, you got the title now.
Well, it's a great opportunity. You know, I'm certainly going to embrace it, and I've worked hard the last 4 years to try to earn this spot. Now it's time to do my thing and take over where Coach Bisaccia left off.
Actually, he's worked really hard for 8 years with the Cowboys, and Keith, you're one of these guys that came up from, you coached high school, college, you got here, and I always respected the guys that started off doing quality control, and I know how tough that job is, late nights, and you kind of paid your dues to get this point. What kept you motivated to keep going like that?
Well, really, ultimately, you're just trying to help the organization any way you can, whatever your role is. You do your best at that particular role at that time, and with that, you hope to gain advancement at some point. So, you know, I started off in personnel here, like you said, worked my way into a quality control job on offense, and then progressed from there. Made the move to special teams, and you know, here we are. And
you mentioned you've been the special team assistant to Coach Bisaccia the last 4 years. Now you got the room to yourself. What's that like, or have you experienced enough to know what it's going to be like?
Well, I mean, being in the room, you know, I was able to coach a lot under him, and he certainly provided an opportunity for me to, you know, interact with the guys on a daily basis, and my job was to coach then. So my title's different, but really my job is the same. I'm still interacting with the players the same way I did in the past, and I'm still coaching, I'm still teaching, and just have a new title.
Now, aside from your kickers, deep snapper, the guys that have been here a while, who are some of the key guys that you see that will be contributing on special teams this season?
Well, you know, Jeff Heath, starting with him, he's been a four-phase player for us at a high level for the last several years, and will continue to be. He's certainly the leader of our group. You know, Swaim really came on last year as a guy that's a core player for us. We'll see what his role is on offense this year as he's competing for the starting job there. But, you know, Damian Wilson certainly playing a role as a four-phase player. And then a guy that's really an upcomer to me is number 85, Noah Brown. You know, Noah's done a tremendous job. He's a physical player. He's a big player that can run. And out of the receiver group, we're looking forward to things he can do for us.
And this probably could be a 30-minute discussion, but you inherit the job, and now the kickoff rules have changed.
Right.
How you kick off, how you return. What do you see as some of the key components that you're going to have to adjust to this year?
Well, you know, the only thing constant in football is change. You know, each year, you know, rosters are changing, coaching staffs are changing, and certainly rules are changing. But with that being said, this year is certainly unique with the types of changes that are taking place for us on teams. You know, it starts with the kickoff unit. You know, there's no longer a run up. Those guys have to start on the 34-yard line, 1 yard off the ball. So basically, we're going to have to experiment a little bit with our takeoff and how that process is going to go. And then on kickoff return, now you have more guys up in that setup zone. You have 8 guys up and only 3 guys back. So it's certainly going to change some of the dynamics of the body types that you're going to use on those particular units, and some of the techniques that we're going to use. It's going to feel more like a punt return in essence than in years past.
Because you can only have 3 guys back, right?
Correct.
And one of them is going to be the main guy back, so the other 2 guys seemingly have to be capable of catching the ball.
Certainly. Those are going to be more skill player, ball type guys. The days of offensive linemen, the days of defensive linemen being on the back and a kickoff return are probably gone at this point. So, you know, certainly guys that can cover a lot of ground. There's going to be more single blocks now because there's no 2-man wedges from the backside. So guys that can block in space, guys that can move, change directions, and block one-on-one as well as handle the football.
Might we see Tavon Austin involved in a little bit of that?
There's a possibility.
Not to give away your secrets or anything.
You know, the good thing for us, we have a lot of different guys that can fill that role. We've got some guys that we believe in as returners. Tavon's certainly one of them. We're glad we have him. You know, he's really been a pro since he's gotten here, and you know, he's dynamic, he's electric with the ball in his hands, and so, you know, he's certainly an option, but, you know, we have some other possibilities as well that can go on the back end at any time.
Okay, Keith, appreciate it very much. Bill, Cowboys special teams coach Keith OQuinn, back to you.
All right, thanks, Mickey and Keith. And one name that I spotted right there, when he mentioned Noah Brown, a wide receiver, of course, he was a 7th-round draft pick last year. When you sort out the wide receiving core on this team, if you can play special teams, you can get a leg up on the competition.
There are a lot of receivers out there, and who do we have to join us next to discuss it all? The standouts of OTAs. Nick Heatman of DallasCowboys.com joins us, and he also tells us which undrafted free agent does he think will make this team.
This segment was brought to you by AT&T, mobilizing your world.
Another hot one here in Texas this afternoon for OTAs. We are wrapping it up this week. Lindsay Draper, Bill Jones, and we are now joined by Nick Heatman of DallasCowboys.com, who has that grin on his face because he's going to tell us everything we need to know about who is standing out, who you like here at OTAs. What's been going on?
Well, I think when you're talking about this time of year, is position battles are always the one, the main focus there. Tight end is something that, of course, we've been talking about since Jason Witten retired. And, I know they drafted Dalton Schultz, but I think that a guy like Blake Jarwin is really interesting to me. Jeff Swaim is the guy you just kind of put in here at first. He's the veteran of the group, if you can call him that. And then, but I think Jarwin's a player that makes a lot of sense to play a lot because he is that complete package. He's really big. He catches the ball well. He gets open. And I think at the end of the day, maybe it'll be early in the season, but I think that Jarwin's going to jump in there and has a really good chance to start.
And they use more than one tight end.
Sure.
So it's tight end by committee.
Yeah, it will be. And it sort of was when Witten was there, even though
he was always
he was the committee. But I think that Jarwin just kind of makes sense there because when you put him there on first and second down, you can do a lot of things with him. He can catch, he can block. Now, Swaim will get a lot of playing time, and so will Schultz and Rico and all those guys, maybe. But we'll see what happens. I think Blake Jarwin, though, to me, just keeps standing out.
All right, we saw the list there. There's 3 defensive players on your list of guys who have caught your eye. Anthony Brown being one of them, Joe Thomas and Cam Kelly. Let's start with Anthony Brown.
Anthony Brown, to me, is a guy that we forget about a lot because, of what they drafted a couple years ago. You got Cheeto, you got Jourdan Lewis. They're the 2 young players. But I think Anthony Brown, though, he's the veteran of the group as well. He's kind of like Swaim because he's still a young guy. He's going into his 3rd year. A lot of times, 3rd year is when they really turn the corner. We asked a lot of players this week about the fastest guy on the team. Anthony Brown, his name keeps coming up a lot. So you got the speed, you got the experience. I think he's going to fit in real well with what Chris Richard's trying to do, and I think we can't overlook what Anthony Brown can do, and especially because his versatility to play in the slot.
And your undrafted free agent to make the team. He must be standing out a lot. What is he doing?
I like Cam Kelly. I like because it's a position that they haven't addressed, and so here's a guy that can play safety. They didn't sign any safeties. They didn't draft anyone. He's a guy that is a local product here, but he's a draftable player that they had on their board. They almost drafted him. They were really excited to get him an undrafted free agent, and I had one scout tell me that where he is right now is ahead of where Barry Church was when they got him in.
Wow.
And we know what Barry Church is doing in this league and what he did for the Cowboys as a captain. So I think Cam Kelly's a guy, if he can kind of stay on that course, has a chance to make this team and contribute.
And a shout out to Wiley, as he is from Wiley, as you mentioned, a local product. We focus so much on the draft, even undrafted guys and the high dollar free agent signees, but linebacker was position they needed depth. And how about Joe Thomas?
Joe Thomas, you just keep hearing his name a lot. And it's similar to what Cam Kelly was doing at safety, just because they didn't address it a lot in the free agency. And then, of course, they drafted Leighton Vander Esch. But I still think Thomas has a chance to do a lot of things because you guys were saying before about special teams, what you could do. Noah Brown can be that type of guy to help at wide receiver. Joe Thomas is a guy that's going to play a lot on special teams, and I think he can play some in the nickel as well. Hard hitter. You need those guys that can bring the players down to the ground.
Seems like it could be a more interesting training camp than we've had because there are legitimate position battles going on.
Definitely. I mean, we talked about tight end. I don't know if left guard is a position battle when they drafted Connor Williams, but everything at wide receiver is a battle from 1 to 6, 7, 9, how many they keep. I mean, safeties is a battle, a lot of the special team stuff. So I think you're right about that. Every day is important. It reminds me back when Dan Bailey was kicking as a rookie with 5 or 6 guys. Practice was important because that was a chance that you could really make a difference. You have to stand out in practice. I think these reps on the practice field, OTA, minicamp, and of course in training camp, is going to be really important.
All right, Nick, thank you so much for all of your hard work here at OTAs and for joining us. Let's take another break. When we come back, we are joined by defensive back Jourdan Lewis. He talks about his relationship with Chris Richard and what he wants to get out of this season. welcome back into the Blitz. I am Lindsay Draper, joined by second-year defensive back Jourdan Lewis. First of all, thank you so much for joining us.
No problem.
We've got a lot to catch up on. Second year, how different is it, first of all, to just come into camps and OTAs with a year under your belt?
It's very different. I mean, when you coming into the NFL, you're training for the combine around a time where it's, you know, like you're getting your first OTAs, your workouts and stuff like that. So, you know, it's not really, you're not comfortable, you're not feeling confident in what you're doing. So, and when you're here for that year, you get a jump on the playbook and everything like that. So you get to see it before, you know, the first year players. And I guess it's like a comfortability, I guess, point of view. If you think about it, it's just like it's more comfortable, and it's just you go out there and you're trying to execute, you know, more, so it's not just trying to not mess up.
Yeah, that's year one. So for you and Chidibe Awuzie and Xavier Woods, you guys all came in last year a strong defensive back class, and how much have you guys really gelled in this offseason?
We've been tight since we got here. We've been doing stuff, you know, since last May. So, I mean, that bond was created, you know, about a year ago. So it's only grown, and, you know, it was just hopefully we can take that next step this year.
Okay, Chris Richard, everyone has their thoughts on him. He's a vocal guy, he's young, fun, but for you guys, what is it like?
It's everything you can imagine. I mean, the great coach he is and the great teacher he is. I mean, it's just to have him here is just a huge plus. I mean, even without football, he's a great person, you know, spiritual guy, and, you know, he's just great to be around. His energy is everything, so it's definitely a lot of fun to be around him.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but he called you his exception to the rule of the mold of the guy he tries to find for his defense, and you're working at a couple different spots right now. Is that kind of does that put a little chip on your shoulder a little bit?
I mean, I've always had a chip on my shoulder. So, you know, I've always played like that. You know, I'm always having something to prove. So it's just, this year is just another year to, you know, go out there and do that. So, you know, just stay focused, you know, stay in line with everything, and go out there and execute. Okay,
so this off season, you had a chance to go back home and put on your first camp for, was it high school students?
Middle school and high school
Middle
students.
school and high school, so wide receivers, defensive backs. Did you like taking on the coaching aspect of things?
I mean, I've always been, you know, when I go back home, I do, you know, certain things. I work out with guys, and I've been doing that since, you know, probably my first year in college. So, you know, just to put everything together and make it a big camp, you know, my first opportunity to do that, and I had to go, you know, go out there and do it. So I had the kids to do it. You know, a lot of guys know me. A lot of guys I know that are still in high school, middle school, and it was a no-brainer. And we had a lot of fun. We taught them some life skill things, you know, other than just football, and everybody enjoyed themselves.
Awesome. Jourdan Lewis, thank you so much for taking the time. We appreciate it. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll talk training camp and all the dates you need to know.
The Dallas Cowboys Blitz was brought to you by AT&T, mobilizing your world. The law offices of Domingo Garcia, the lawyer that works for justice. And by the Dallas Cowboys Football Club. For the ultimate Dallas Cowboys experience, tour the Star in Frisco, where the Cowboys train and work. For more information, visit thestarinfrisco.com/tours.
We're about a month and a half away from training camp. Of course, the Cowboys spend the first half in Oxnard, California, and then wrap up here in Dallas. Bill, I'm looking forward to it.
Yes, in fact, I just did the math on it. It is 6 weeks from Tuesday. The Cowboys team charter will depart here and head to Oxnard, California, and it will be very interesting. By the way, we will have a live telecast of one of the practices out in Oxnard on Sunday, August 5th.
And the reason I love that is because we have people like Nate Newton. We've got Bill calling the whole thing. Brian Broaddus sitting up in the tower. We are breaking down every single drill, every position battle. It's very up close and personal.
And now less than 2 months away from the preseason opener at the San Francisco 49ers and the home preseason opener on August 18th against the Cincinnati Bengals. It'll be here before you know it.
I cannot wait. And I keep wondering, are we going to maybe see Dez Bryant in Houston? You know, that last game, it's kind of interesting to think about. I don't know.
You know, and I've said all along, I think it's going to be an injury in someone else's camp that's going to prompt some movement on the Dez Bryant front. It may be all the way to training camp before Dez finds a home. We shall see.
All right, this is our second to last Blitz.
It is.
I believe the summer
so we've
has
got one
flown
more
by.
for
Yes.
minicamp next week.
Next week, so definitely come back and join us. Bill Jones, I am Lindsay Draper. Thanks to Jourdan Lewis for joining us and Keith OQuinn with Mickey Spagnola. We've got much for you in our season finale coming up next week.